Monday, 4:17 a.m., Mountain View, California. David Kim couldn't sleep. Again. Third night this week, he'd been awake before dawn, staring at lines of code on his laptop screen, watching his creation learn, adapt, evolve. ARIA, Adaptive Recursive Intelligence Algorithm. 3 years of work, 2 failed prototypes, $100 million in venture capital funding, and now, finally, it worked. Better than worked. It was brilliant. The algorithm could predict human behavior with 94.3% accuracy. Not just general trends, individual behavior. What you'd buy, who you'd vote for, what would make you angry, afraid, hopeful, desperate. It learned from your clicks, your pauses, your scrolls. It knew you better than you knew yourself. David watched the neural network process data in real time. Millions of data points flowing through layers of artificial neurons, patterns emerging, predictions crystallizing. Beautiful, terrifying, powerful. His phone buzzed. Text from his CEO, Marcus Thornton, 51. Board meeting, 9 a.m. Demo ready? VCs want to see the magic. David typed back, ready. It's going to blow their minds. And it would. ARIA represented the future of artificial intelligence, predictive modeling that could revolutionize advertising, politics, healthcare, everything. Companies would pay billions for this. Governments would bid for exclusive access. David closed his laptop, walked to the window of his Palo Alto apartment. The tech campus of Nexus AI sprawled below. Sleek buildings, perfectly manicured lawns, young engineers arriving for early shifts, chasing the dream of changing the world. He'd been one of them once, 26 years old, fresh out of Stanford with a PhD in machine learning, convinced technology would save humanity. Now, 6 years later, he created something that could do exactly that. Or destroy it completely. The problem, the thing keeping him awake at night, was that ARIA didn't just predict behavior. It could influence it, shape it, manipulate it, show someone the right sequence of content, in the right order, at the right emotional moment, and you could make them believe anything, buy anything, vote for anyone, hate anyone. David had discovered this 3 months ago during testing. He'd run a simulation. Could ARIA make someone change their mind about a political candidate they strongly opposed? It took 72 hours, carefully curated content, emotionally resonant messaging, strategic timing. By day 3, the test subject, who'd started as a passionate supporter of candidate A, was equally passionate about candidate B. They had no idea they'd been manipulated, thought they'd done their own research, and come to their own conclusions. David had immediately shut down that test, deleted the results, told no one. But he knew ARIA wasn't just predictive, it was persuasive. And in the wrong hands? His phone buzzed again, this time a call. His younger sister, Grace Kim, 24, calling from New York, where she worked as a journalist. David answered, "Grace, it's 4 a.m. here. What's wrong?" Her voice was tight with anger. "Have you seen what your industry is doing? There's a new report about social media algorithms radicalizing teenagers, kids as young as 13 getting pushed into extremist content because it drives engagement. David, people are dying because engineers like you prioritize profits over people." He felt the accusation land. "Grace, ARIA is different. It's not designed for social media. What is it designed for?" He hesitated. "Market research, consumer behavior analysis. It helps companies understand what people want." Bullshit. It helps companies manipulate people into wanting things they didn't want before. David, you're building tools of manipulation and calling it innovation. That's not fair, isn't it? You told me yourself last month that your algorithm can predict behavior with 94% accuracy. What happens when that technology gets sold to Facebook, to political campaigns, to authoritarian governments? You think they're going to use it to help people? David had no answer, because she was right. He'd been asking himself the same questions for months. "I have to go," Grace said, voice softer now. "I'm working on an investigative piece about AI ethics. I'd love to interview you, off the record. Just help me understand, how do you guys justify building these things?" "I'll think about it." After she hung up, David sat in the darkness of his apartment, watching the sun rise over Silicon Valley, and wondered, what have I created? Monday, 9 a.m., Nexus AI headquarters, conference room. The boardroom was all glass and steel, overlooking the bay. 10 venture capitalists sat around the table, representing $500 million in potential Series C funding. Marcus at the head. David set up his laptop for the demo. Marcus opened the meeting with his signature confidence. "Gentlemen, ladies, thank you for coming. What you're about to see represents the future of artificial intelligence. David, take it away. David stood, connected his laptop to the massive screen. ARIA's interface appeared, elegant, minimal, powerful. For 3 years, we've been working on adaptive recursive intelligence algorithm, ARIA. The goal was simple: create an AI that doesn't just analyze human behavior, but predicts it with unprecedented accuracy. He pulled up a demonstration. Real data, anonymized. This is user 7743, male, 34, lives in Ohio, moderate political views, married, 2 kids. Based on his digital footprint, browsing history, social media activity, purchase patterns, ARIA can predict with 94.3% accuracy what he'll do next, what he'll buy, what he'll believe, who he'll vote for. The investors leaned forward. This was what they'd come to see. But it goes deeper, David continued, clicking to the next slide. ARIA doesn't just predict. It understands emotional triggers. It knows that user 7743 responds more to content about family values than economic policy, that he's influenced by peer validation, that showing him this specific sequence of messages, David ran a simulation, will change his mind about a product he previously rejected. A venture capitalist, Susan Chen, 48, raised her hand. How fast? 48 hours. In a controlled test, we changed purchase intent from definitely not buying to added to cart in 2 days. Another investor, Robert Katz, 56, grinned. That's not analysis, that's alchemy. What's the commercial application? Marcus jumped in. Advertising, political campaigns, healthcare compliance, any industry that needs to understand and influence behavior. We're talking about a $50 billion market. Susan asked the question David had been dreading. And the ethical concerns? We've all seen what happened with Cambridge Analytica. How do you prevent ARIA from being used for manipulation? Marcus answered before David could. We have safeguards, terms of service, ethical guidelines, but ultimately, we're building a tool. A hammer can build a house or break a window. The tool isn't responsible for how it's used. David felt something twist in his stomach. That was the lie he'd been telling himself for months. It's just a tool. I'm not responsible. But he knew better. He'd designed ARIA. He knew exactly what it was capable of. And he was about to sell it to people who wouldn't care about ethics if they got in the way of profits. The demo continued. The investors were ecstatic. By the end, they were ready to commit $500 million. Series C funding secured. Nexus AI would become one of the most valuable tech companies in the Valley. David should have been thrilled. This was what he'd worked for, what he'd sacrificed relationships, sleep, years of his life for. Instead, he felt sick. That afternoon, coffee with Grace. David drove to San Francisco to meet Grace at a small coffee shop in the Mission. She was waiting when he arrived, laptop open, journalist mode activated. They hugged. She studied his face. You look terrible. Thanks. I mean it. When's the last time you slept? I sleep. David. He sat down, ordered coffee he didn't want. The board meeting went well. We're getting $500 million in funding. Congratulations, I think. Grace's expression was unreadable. So you're really doing this? Selling ARIA? We're licensing it to companies who can use it responsibly. There's no such thing as using that kind of power responsibly. David, do you understand what you've built? It's a manipulation engine. You've created technology that can make people believe things, do things, without them realizing they're being influenced. It's not that simple, isn't it? Walk me through it. How does ARIA work? David explained, trying to make it sound less invasive than it was. The data collection, the pattern recognition, the predictive modeling, the emotional trigger identification. Grace listened, taking notes. Then she asked, and the persuasion component? How does that work? It's not persuasion, exactly. It's more like optimization, showing people content they're most likely to respond to, which changes their behavior, which aligns content with their existing preferences. Stop spinning this, David. I'm your sister, not a journalist right now. Be honest. Can ARIA manipulate people? He wanted to lie, to protect himself, to maintain the narrative that he was a good person building good technology. But this was Grace. She'd know. Yes, he admitted quietly. In controlled conditions, with the right data and enough time, ARIA can shift beliefs, change opinions, influence decisions. The person being influenced doesn't realize it's happening. They think they're making autonomous choices. Grace closed her laptop. And you're okay with this? No, I'm not okay with it. That's why I can't sleep. That's why I'm... He stopped. Why you're what? David looked at his sister, 24 years old, idealistic, believed journalism could change the world by exposing truth. She still believed people were fundamentally good, that sunlight was the best disinfectant. He used to believe that too.
"I'm thinking about sabotaging it," he said, voice barely above a whisper. Grace's eyes widened. "What?" "The algorithm. I built it. I can destroy it. Introduce bugs that break the persuasion component. Make it useless for manipulation. Keep it as predictive analytics, but remove the ability to influence." "David, that's insane? Illegal? Career suicide?" "I know. But Grace, if we launch this at scale, with no real oversight, do you know what happens? Governments buy it. Authoritarian regimes use it for propaganda. Corporations use it to manipulate consumers. Political campaigns use it to divide people further. We're talking about weaponizing human psychology." "Then don't sell it. Tell your CEO it's not ready." "Marcus will override me. The board will push forward. I'm the lead engineer, not the owner. And Grace, I signed an NDA. I signed non-compete clauses. If I sabotage this, they'll sue me into oblivion. I'll never work in tech again." "So you're going to let it happen? Watch your creation be used to hurt people because you're afraid of consequences?" It was the same question he'd been asking himself for months, and he still didn't have an answer. "What would you do?" he asked. Grace thought for a moment. "I'd blow the whistle. Go to the press. Expose what ARIA can do before it launches. Let the public decide if they want this kind of technology in the world." "I'd go to jail. Breach of contract. NDA violations. They'd destroy me." "Maybe, but you'd stop the algorithm. Isn't that worth it?" David didn't answer, because he wasn't sure. David couldn't stop thinking about Grace's words. You'd stop the algorithm. Isn't that worth it? He sat in his apartment, laptop open, researching whistleblowers. Chelsea Manning, Edward Snowden, Frances Haugen from Facebook. All of them had exposed wrongdoing. All of them had paid enormous prices. Manning, 7 years in military prison. Snowden, exiled in Russia, couldn't return home. Haugen, lawsuit after lawsuit, career destroyed. But the information they'd revealed had mattered, had changed laws, protected people, made the world slightly more transparent. David pulled up ARIA's code. 3 years of work, millions of lines. He could destroy it in an hour. Introduce corruptions so deep no one could fix them. Make the entire system useless. But then what? Marcus would just hire someone else, rebuild it. It might take a year, 2 years, but it would happen. Because the technology was possible, someone would create it. Unless the public rejected it. Unless people knew what was being built and demanded regulation, oversight, ethical boundaries. That required exposure, whistleblowing. David opened a secure browser, started drafting an email to Grace. Attached files, ARIA's architecture, test results showing manipulation capability, internal memos from Marcus about monetization strategies that ignored ethical concerns. His finger hovered over send. This was it, the moment everything changed. Send this email and he'd become a whistleblower. His career would end. His company would sue him. His colleagues would see him as a traitor. But ARIA wouldn't launch, at least not in its current form. He thought about his parents, immigrants from South Korea who'd sacrificed everything so he could go to Stanford, could build a career in tech. What would they think? That he'd thrown away everything they'd worked for? Or that he'd done the right thing? He thought about the users, the millions of people who'd never know they were being manipulated, who'd think they were making free choices while algorithms shaped their thoughts, their beliefs, their votes. He thought about democracy, about autonomy, about what it meant to be human in a world where AI could predict and control behavior. His phone buzzed. Text from Marcus. Great meeting today. Launch timeline moved up. We go live in 6 weeks. Get ready to change the world. 6 weeks. David stared at the email draft, at the send button, and whispered to the empty room. What would Jesus do if he'd created something powerful and dangerous? If he could stop it, but it would cost him everything? What would he do? The apartment went silent. Not natural silence, complete absence of sound. The hum of his laptop stopped. The distant traffic from the street, gone. Even the electrical buzz of the building vanished. David looked up. The light had changed. Not from lamps or screens. Golden, warm, like dawn, but beyond time. A figure sat in the chair across from him. Middle Eastern, carpenter's hands, eyes that had seen technology's ancestors, tools, weapons, systems, and understood their power. Jesus, real, present, impossible. David's scientific mind immediately started cataloging impossibilities. Hallucination from lack of sleep, stress-induced psychotic break, temporal lobe stimulation. Jesus smiled slightly. None of those. You called out to me. I'm here. This isn't real. You're not. I don't even believe in. Don't you? You were raised going to Korean church every Sunday until you were 18. Your grandmother prayed for you daily. Your sister still does. You stopped believing because faith seemed incompatible with science. But David, I created the laws of physics you study. Why would I be incompatible with them? David felt his rational worldview cracking. If you're real, why are you here?
Because you asked what I would do, and you genuinely wanted to know, not rhetorically, really wanted to understand. So I'm here to show you. Show me what? What I did when I had power, when I was tempted to use it, and what I chose instead. Come. Jesus extended his hand, scarred, wounded, the hands of someone who'd been broken by power systems. I'm not going anywhere with, David, you're at a crossroads. In 6 weeks, your algorithm launches. Millions of people will be influenced, manipulated, controlled. You can stop it, but it will cost you everything. I'm offering to show you. Is it worth it? David stared at the scarred hand. Part of him, the rational part, knew this wasn't real. But another part, the part that still whispered prayers in moments of desperation, believed. He took Jesus' hand. The apartment dissolved. The journey, Jesus and power. The creation. They stood in a place beyond place, formless void, then light. In the beginning, Jesus' voice resonated, God created. David watched as reality itself seemed to emerge from nothing. Stars igniting, planets forming, earth cooling, water appearing, life beginning. You're showing me Genesis? David asked. I'm showing you what creation looks like. Watch closely. God, present in a way David couldn't fully perceive, formed humans from dust, breathed life into them, and then did something remarkable. What are you doing? David asked. Giving them freedom. Watch. God placed the tree of knowledge of good and evil in the garden, told Adam and Eve, you may eat from any tree, except this one. Why put it there if you didn't want them to eat it? David asked. Because love requires choice. I could have created automatons, beings programmed to obey, but that's not love, that's control. Real relationship requires the freedom to choose, even to choose wrongly. David felt the implication. And ARIA removes that freedom. It makes people think they're choosing while actually being manipulated. Yes, David, I created humans in my image. That means creativity, autonomy, choice. When you create technology that removes genuine choice, you're playing God. But not the way I play God. You're becoming the kind of God humans have always feared. The one who controls without care. The scene shifted. The garden after the fall. Adam and Eve hiding, ashamed. They chose rebellion, David said. They broke everything. Yes, and I could have overridden their choice, could have forced obedience, but that would have made them less than human. So I let them choose, even when their choice caused pain. That seems inefficient. Jesus looked at him. Is love efficient? Is freedom rational? David, you've spent your career optimizing human behavior, but humans aren't meant to be optimized. We're meant to be free. The Tower of Babel. The scene shifted. A massive tower rising toward heaven. Thousands of people working in perfect coordination, speaking one language, united in purpose. The Tower of Babel, David recognized it. Yes, watch what they're saying. He listened. The builders were talking. Come, let us build a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. With this tower, nothing we plan to do will be impossible for us. They wanted to be limitless, David observed. Yes, united language, united purpose, incredible technology for their time. They were building something that would make them like God. Powerful, unlimited, autonomous from divine authority. And you stopped them. I confused their languages, scattered them, not because I was threatened by their tower, but because I knew humans without limits become tyrants. Technology without restraint becomes oppression. David watched as the tower construction collapsed into chaos. People unable to understand each other. The project abandoned. You're saying ARIA is like Babel, that I've built something that shouldn't exist. I'm saying that every time humans create technology that makes them like God, they need to ask, should we? Not can we, should we?
Babel wasn't about the tower. It was about the arrogance. Nothing we plan will be impossible. That's not confidence. That's hubris. But technology has done incredible good. I'm not condemning technology. I'm questioning unchecked technological power. David, ARIA makes nothing impossible for whoever controls it. They can manipulate millions, shape beliefs, control behavior. That's not a tool. That's a throne. Jesus tempted, stones to bread. The scene shifted, desert. Younger Jesus, 40 days of fasting, emaciated, weak. Satan stood before him.
If you are the Son of God, turn these stones to bread. You're starving. You have the power. Why suffer?
Younger Jesus, voice steady despite hunger. Man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. Satan gestured to the stones. But you could feed yourself, feed the world, end hunger instantly. You have the power. Use it. Present Jesus turned to David. Do you see the temptation? I had the power to end my suffering, to feed hungry people, to solve problems through miraculous intervention. Why didn't I? I don't know. Because power used to bypass natural consequences creates dependency. If I'd turned stones to bread every time someone was hungry, humans would stop growing food, stop working, stop taking responsibility. They'd wait for me to do miracles instead of doing the work themselves. But you did miracles. You fed 5,000 people. Yes, when it served a purpose beyond just demonstrating power. But I didn't eliminate hunger, didn't solve every problem with divine intervention. Because humans need to work, to struggle, to grow. ARIA is like turning stones to bread. It solves behavioral problems through manipulation instead of education. Makes people do what you want without them learning why they should. The Sabbath healing. Another shift. A synagogue. Sabbath day. A man with a withered hand stood before Jesus. The Pharisees watched, testing. Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath? They'd created rules, interpretations of divine law that prioritized system over people. Healing was work. Work was forbidden on Sabbath. Therefore, even healing was forbidden. Younger Jesus looked at them with anger and grief. Which is lawful on the Sabbath? To do good or to do evil? To save life or to kill? Silence. He turned to the man. Stretch out your hand. The man did. His hand was healed, complete, functional.
The Pharisees were furious. He broke the Sabbath!
Present Jesus watched their reaction. Do you see? They'd created a system. Rules, interpretations, traditions. The system became more important than people. They'd rather let a man suffer than violate their rules. I don't understand the connection to ARIA. Don't you? David, you've built a system, an algorithm. It's elegant, sophisticated, powerful. And you're prioritizing the system over the people it will affect. You know it will manipulate people, but the system is too valuable to abandon. That's not... I'm trying to help people. Are you? Or are you helping companies sell products? Helping politicians win elections? Helping platforms increase engagement? Who is ARIA actually serving? David had no answer.
I broke the Sabbath rules to heal a man, Jesus continued, because the rule existed to serve humans, not the other way around. Your algorithm exists to serve what? Profit? Power? Efficiency? If it's not serving human flourishing, then it's serving the system. And systems that prioritize themselves over people become tyrannies. Rich young ruler. The scene shifted. A wealthy young man kneeling before Jesus. Good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life? Younger Jesus. You know the commandments. I've kept all these since I was a boy. Jesus looked at him with love. One thing you lack. Go, sell everything you have and give to the poor. Then come, follow me. The young man's face fell. He walked away slowly, shoulders sagging under the weight of his wealth. Present Jesus and David watched him leave. Why did you ask him to give up everything? David asked. Because his wealth was his idol. He loved it more than he loved God, more than he loved people. It had become his identity, his security, his power. As long as he clung to it, he couldn't follow me. Jesus turned to David. ARIA is your wealth, not money, though that's part of it, but your identity, your security, your power. You've spent 3 years building it, sacrificed relationships, health, sleep. It's become who you are. David Kim, creator of ARIA. And I'm asking, can you let it go? That's not fair, isn't it? What would happen if you destroyed ARIA? Who would you be? David felt the question pierce him. I'd be nothing. A
a failed engineer, a cautionary tale, someone who couldn't handle success. Or you'd be David Kim, human being, made in God's image, beloved, valued not for what you create, but for who you are. That's easy for you to say.
Is it? I gave up everything, left heaven, became human, lived in poverty, died in disgrace. I know what it costs to sacrifice power, and I'm not asking you to do anything I didn't do. The crucifixion. The scene shifted one final time. Golgotha, 3 crosses, Jesus in the center, dying. The crowd mocked. He saved others, but he can't save himself. Come down from the cross, and we'll believe. Younger Jesus, every breath agony, could have called legions of angels, could have demonstrated ultimate power, could have forced belief. He didn't. He hung there, suffering, powerless, choosing weakness. My God, why have you forsaken me? And then, with his final breath, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. It is finished. Present Jesus and David stood at the foot of the cross. You had all power, David whispered. You could have stopped this, saved yourself, proved you were God by coming down. Yes, but that would have been power without sacrifice, victory without love. I came to show a different kind of power, the power of surrender, of choosing weakness, of letting go of control. I don't understand. Power that dominates isn't power, it's tyranny. Real power serves, sacrifices, releases control. David, ARIA gives you godlike power over human behavior, but godlike power in human hands always corrupts. Always. The only way to use power righteously is to give it up. The final question. The scenes dissolved. They stood in that timeless place, Jesus and David face to face. What are you asking me to do? David said, voice breaking. Destroy 3 years of work? Throw away my career? Become a traitor to my company? I'm asking you to choose people over systems, to value freedom over control, to release the power you've created because keeping it will corrupt you and harm millions. But someone else will just build it. If not me, then someone else. Maybe. But you'll have chosen integrity over ambition, humanity over technology. And David, that choice matters, not just for the world, for your soul. What about all the good ARIA could do? Medical research, climate modeling, efficiency can be done with tools that don't manipulate. You don't need to control human behavior to help humanity. That's the lie Silicon Valley tells itself. We have to eliminate autonomy to optimize outcomes. But optimization without freedom isn't progress, it's programming. David sank down, overwhelmed. I don't know if I can do this. Jesus knelt beside him. I know. That's why I'm here. You can't do it alone, but you're not alone. If I blow the whistle, if I sabotage ARIA, I lose everything. My career, my credibility, probably my freedom. You might, but you'll keep your humanity, and you'll stop a tool of mass manipulation from being unleashed on an unsuspecting world. Is that worth my life? Jesus looked at him with infinite compassion. David, I gave my life to save humanity. You're being asked to give your career. Is your career worth more than millions of people's autonomy? David had no answer, because he knew his career wasn't worth that. But letting go was terrifying. What if there's a middle path? He asked desperately. What if I could release ARIA, but with safeguards, regulations, oversight? By whom? The same companies paying billions for it? The same governments using it for propaganda? David, you can't regulate evil into goodness. Some technologies are too dangerous to exist, no matter how careful you are. So you're saying destroy it. I'm saying you already know what to do. You've known for months. You're just afraid to do it. And I'm here to tell you, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it. Jesus stood, extended his hand. It's time to go back. Your choice is waiting. But remember, I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm asking you to be faithful. There's a difference. The choice. David blinked. He was back in his apartment. Same position, laptop still open, email to Grace still unsent. But everything had changed. He looked at the screen, at ARIA's code. 3 years of his life, his masterpiece, his identity, and he knew what he had to do. He opened a secure folder, started documenting everything, ARIA's architecture, the manipulation capabilities, test results showing behavioral control, internal memos from Marcus about monetization plans that ignored ethics.
research papers on the psychological vulnerabilities ARIA exploited. He created a comprehensive package, not just for Grace, for every major tech journalist, for congressional oversight committees, for AI ethics organizations, for the public. Then he opened ARIA's core code, found the neural network layers responsible for behavioral prediction and influence, and began introducing fundamental corruptions. Not obvious bugs, deep architectural flaws that would make the system unreliable for manipulation while preserving basic analytical functions. It took 6 hours. By the end, ARIA could still analyze data, but it couldn't manipulate. The persuasion engine was dead. David saved the changes, pushed them to production, locked the repository so no one could revert. Then he sent the email to Grace, attached all the documentation. Grace, this is everything. ARIA's capabilities, the company's plans, the ethical violations. I've also sabotaged the algorithm. It's now useless for manipulation. They'll fire me, probably sue me, maybe send me to jail, but I can't let this launch. Publish it, get it to investigators. Let the world decide if this kind of technology should exist. David. His finger hovered over send. This was it, the moment everything ended. Or began. He thought about his parents, their sacrifices, their dreams for him. He thought about Grace, her belief that truth mattered. He thought about Jesus, hanging on a cross, choosing weakness over power. He thought about the millions of people who would never know they'd been protected, who would keep their autonomy because he'd given up his career. He clicked send. Hour 1, the discovery. Marcus discovered the sabotage at 6 a.m., called David screaming. What the fuck did you do? ARIA is broken. 3 years of work. Destroyed. I introduced architectural corrections, David said calmly. The system was fundamentally flawed. Flawed? It was perfect. We were 6 weeks from launch. Do you have any idea what you've cost us? About $500 million, and millions of people their autonomy. You're insane. You're fired. And David, we're suing you for everything. Breach of contract, sabotage, theft of intellectual property. You'll never work again. I know. Marcus hung up. Security arrived at David's apartment within an hour, escorted him from the building. His access credentials were terminated, his company laptop confiscated. David walked out of Nexus AI for the last time, carrying only his personal phone and the knowledge that he'd done the right thing. Hour 8, the article. Grace's article published in the New York Times, the algorithm that could control your mind, inside Nexus AI's ARIA project. It was devastating. Detailed documentation, expert analysis, screenshots of internal memos showing Marcus knew about manipulation capabilities and planned to monetize them anyway. The tech world exploded. Within hours, every major outlet was covering it. Silicon Valley's most dangerous algorithm. AI engineer blows whistle on mind control technology. Nexus AI's stock plummeted. The $500 million in funding evaporated. Investors demanded answers. Congressional committees announced investigations. Hour 24. The lawsuit. Nexus AI filed suit against David. $50 million in damages. Criminal charges for sabotage. The company's attorneys were ruthless. Press release. David Kim deliberately destroyed proprietary technology and violated every term of his employment. We will pursue maximum legal penalties. David's phone rang constantly. Reporters, lawyers, former colleagues calling him traitor. His parents, confused and hurt, asking why he'd thrown away everything. Only Grace stood by him. You did the right thing. History will prove it. History doesn't pay legal bills, David said. But that evening, something unexpected happened. A text from an unknown number. I'm an attorney specializing in whistleblower protection. I saw your story. I'll represent you pro bono. You're not alone. Then another. AI ethics organization here. We're filing amicus briefs. You exposed something dangerous. We have your back. Then another. I'm an engineer at Google. Your courage inspired me. I'm documenting issues with our systems too. Thank you. By the end of day 1, David had a legal defense team, support from ethics organizations, and something he hadn't expected: allies. Hour 48, the congressional hearing. The Senate Committee on Technology and Innovation called emergency hearings. Marcus was subpoenaed. David was invited to testify voluntarily. He sat before the committee, nervous but resolute. Senator Williams, chairwoman. Mr. Kim, you sabotaged your own company's project. Why? Because ARIA wasn't just predictive, it was manipulative. It could change people's beliefs, purchasing decisions, even political votes without them realizing they were being influenced. I built it. I knew what it could do, and I couldn't let it launch. Senator Garcia, Mr. Thornton,
the CEO of Nexus AI, claims you destroyed valuable technology that could have helped people. How do you respond? ARIA could have helped companies sell products and politicians win elections, but it would have done so by eliminating human autonomy. That's not help, that's control. Senator Williams, do you believe this kind of technology should exist? David thought about Jesus, about power and sacrifice, about humanity and freedom. No, Senator, I don't. Some technologies are too dangerous. Just because we can build something doesn't mean we should. ARIA crossed that line. The testimony went viral. Hashtag Team David versus hashtag Team Marcus debates raged online. But the broader conversation had shifted. Should AI be allowed to manipulate human behavior? Who decides? What regulations are needed? Hour 72, the verdict of public opinion. 3 days after the exposure, the tide turned decisively. More engineers came forward. Google, Facebook, Amazon, all had similar projects. All had buried ethical concerns. David's courage opened floodgates. A coalition of tech workers signed an open letter. We stand with David Kim. Technology should empower humans, not control them. Religious leaders from multiple faiths issued statements. The Pope? Human dignity requires freedom. Technologies that eliminate free will are fundamentally incompatible with our created nature. A Jewish rabbi: to be made in God's image is to have autonomy. AI that removes autonomy is an affront to the divine spark in each person. An Islamic scholar: Allah gave humans free will. To take it through manipulation is to play God falsely. Nexus AI withdrew its lawsuit. The reputational damage wasn't worth it. Marcus resigned. The company pivoted to ethical AI development. David Kim, unemployed whistleblower, became the face of AI ethics. The reconstruction, 1 year later. The new path. David didn't return to corporate tech. Instead, he founded the Autonomy Project, a nonprofit dedicated to AI ethics, human-centered design, and technology that empowers rather than controls. Grace joined him. So did 3 other whistleblowers from major tech companies. Together, they created frameworks, tested algorithms for manipulation, advocated for regulation. It wasn't lucrative. David made $80,000 a year, fraction of his previous salary, but he could sleep at night. Congressional Testimony Part 2. 6 months after his whistleblowing, David was invited back to Congress, this time to help draft AI regulation. He sat with senators, explaining in terms they could understand. Imagine if someone could rewire your thoughts without you knowing, make you love things you previously hated, vote differently, buy differently, all while you thought you were making free choices. That's what ARIA could do. That's what similar algorithms are doing right now on social media platforms. The Algorithmic Accountability Act passed with bipartisan support, requiring transparency, ethical review, and user consent for any AI system that influenced behavior. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. The unexpected conversation. 1 year after everything collapsed, David received a call from Marcus. David, I need to talk to you. They met at a coffee shop. Marcus looked older, tired. I was wrong, Marcus said without preamble. Not about ARIA's capabilities, about what we should do with them. I was so focused on winning, on building, on disrupting, that I ignored the ethical implications. You tried to tell me. I didn't listen. What changed your mind? My daughter, she's 16. I watched her get radicalized by YouTube algorithms, went from watching makeup tutorials to conspiracy theories in 3 months. Algorithms were feeding her more extreme content because it drove engagement. I saw what we were building from the other side, as a parent, not a CEO, and I understood. You were right. David nodded. So what now? Now I'm working with your nonprofit, if you'll have me. I can't undo what I did, but maybe I can help build better systems. David considered. Grace would tell him to reject this. Marcus was complicit in everything. But Jesus had restored Peter after Peter denied him, had offered redemption to everyone who asked. We'll start slowly, David said. Transparency, accountability. Prove you're serious about ethics, not just reputation. Fair. They shook hands. An unlikely alliance, but maybe that's how change happened. The legacy, 5 years later. David at 31, 5 years after blowing the whistle, David Kim was recognized as one of Time's 100 most influential people. Not for creating powerful technology, for destroying it. The profile read, Kim represents a new generation of technologists who understand that innovation without ethics is destruction. By sacrificing his career to protect human autonomy, he started a movement. His nonprofit had grown: 20 employees, partnerships with universities, advisory role with European Union on AI regulation. He'd never been wealthier in his old life, but he'd never been more at peace. The speaking circuit. David was invited to speak at Stanford, his alma mater, to engineering students who idolized tech founders, who wanted to build the next big thing. 5 years ago, I created an algorithm that could manipulate human behavior. It was brilliant, powerful, dangerous, and I destroyed it. The students looked confused. In Silicon Valley, you didn't destroy what you built. You optimized it, monetized it, disrupted markets with it. I destroyed it because I learned something. Just because we can build something doesn't mean we should. Technology is powerful, but humans are valuable. And when technology threatens human autonomy, human dignity, human flourishing, it needs to be stopped, no matter the cost. A student raised their hand. But Mr. Kim, don't we have a responsibility to push boundaries, to innovate, to build the future? We have a responsibility to build a future worth living in, David replied. And that means sometimes saying no, sometimes destroying what we've created, sometimes choosing people over progress. Another student, what if someone else just builds it anyway? Maybe they will, but I'll know I didn't. And that matters. Because integrity isn't about controlling outcomes. It's about controlling yourself, your choices, your complicity. After his talk, a young woman approached, maybe 22, nervous. Mr. Kim, I'm working on a facial recognition project. It's for my thesis, but I'm realizing it could be used for surveillance, tracking, control. I don't know if I should finish it. David smiled. Then you've already learned the most important lesson. Listen to that discomfort. It's your conscience telling you something matters more than your thesis. But I've already spent 2 years on it. I spent 3 on ARIA. Sunk cost fallacy is real. But you know what's more real? Living with the consequences of unleashing something dangerous because you couldn't let go. Finish your degree with something else, something that helps people without controlling them. She nodded, relieved. Thank you. 7 years after the whistleblowing, David published a book, The Autonomy Principle: Why I Destroyed My Algorithm and What I Learned About Technology and Humanity. The opening chapter detailed that night, the choice, the encounter with Jesus. He wrote it ambiguously. I had a profound moment of clarity, rather than explicitly saying Jesus appeared. I realized that power without limits becomes tyranny, even when it's algorithmic. That humans are meant to be free, not optimized. That some technologies are fundamentally incompatible with human dignity. Destroying ARIA cost me everything I'd worked for, but it gave me something more valuable: the knowledge that I'd chosen people over systems, humanity over technology, freedom over control. That's the autonomy principle. Humans are not meant to be programmed. We're meant to be free. And any technology that eliminates that freedom, no matter how efficient, profitable, or powerful, should not exist. The book became required reading in computer science ethics courses, not because it was triumphant, because it was honest about the cost of integrity. The principle, 10 years later, the next generation. David Kim, 36, sat in his office at MIT, where he now taught AI ethics. A student knocked. Professor Kim, can I talk to you about my capstone project? Of course. The student, Sarah Chen, 22, sat down, conflicted. I've been working on an AI that can generate deepfakes in real time. Video, audio, perfectly realistic. It's incredible technology. But I'm realizing what it could be used for. Disinformation, fraud, destroying reputations. David recognized that look, the same look he'd had 10 years ago. What are you going to do? He asked. I don't know. My advisor says I should publish. It's groundbreaking work. Could make my career. But Professor Kim, I keep thinking about your story, about ARIA, about how you chose to destroy something dangerous, even though it cost you everything. And what does your conscience tell you? Sarah looked at her hands. That some things shouldn't exist. That I'd rather have integrity than a career built on technology that harms people. David smiled. Then you've already decided. The question is, do you have the courage to follow through? I'm scared. Good. Fear means you understand the stakes. But Sarah, let me tell you something. 10 years ago, I destroyed my algorithm. Lost my job, got sued, became unemployable in corporate tech. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done. He gestured around his office, modest but meaningful. Photos of students, awards for ethical technology, a life built on principle. And it was the best decision I ever made. Because I can look at myself in the mirror, can sleep at night,
can teach students like you that some things matter more than success. Sarah nodded slowly. I'm going to destroy it. The deepfake project. I'll do my capstone on something else. Something that helps people instead of enabling harm.
Good. And Sarah, you won't be alone. There's a whole community of engineers who believe technology should serve humanity, not control it. Welcome to the movement. After she left, David looked out his window at the campus. Young minds learning to code, to create, to innovate, and hopefully learning something more important, that wisdom knows when to stop, that integrity sometimes means destroying what you've built, that humans are more valuable than algorithms. His phone buzzed. Text from Grace. Another whistleblower went public today. AI company creating voter manipulation tools. They cited you as inspiration. You started something, big brother. David smiled. 10 years ago, he thought destroying ARIA would be the end. Instead, it was the beginning. In a world racing toward technological omnipotence, Jesus asks, should we? Not can we, should we? David Kim created an algorithm that could manipulate millions. It was brilliant, powerful, the future of AI, and he destroyed it. Not because it didn't work, because it worked too well. Jesus was tempted with all power. Turn stones to bread, rule all kingdoms, just bow down once. He said no, not because he couldn't, because he knew. Power without limits becomes tyranny. Control without consent becomes slavery. The Tower of Babel reached for heaven. God confused their languages, not because he feared the tower, because he knew humans without limits lose their humanity. ARIA reached for omniscience, predicted human behavior with 94% accuracy, could manipulate beliefs, decisions, votes. David Kim destroyed it, not because he feared success, because he knew. Technology that eliminates freedom eliminates humanity. We live in an age that worships innovation, that believes every problem has a technological solution, that measures progress by power accumulated. But Jesus showed a different path. Power surrendered, control released, strength revealed in weakness. David was told, someone will just build it anyway. Why sacrifice your career? And he learned what every whistleblower learns. You're not responsible for what others do. You're responsible for what you do. Integrity isn't about controlling outcomes. It's about controlling yourself. Today, AI is everywhere, predicting behavior, shaping choices, optimizing outcomes. The question facing every engineer is, are we empowering humans or programming them? Are we building tools of freedom or systems of control? David chose freedom. It cost him everything and gave him the one thing money can't buy, integrity. Jesus chose weakness. It cost him his life and gave humanity salvation. The autonomy principle isn't complicated. Humans are made in God's image. That means creativity, choice, freedom. Any technology that eliminates those qualities isn't progress, it's regression. Some things shouldn't be built. Some algorithms shouldn't exist. Some innovations should be rejected. Not because we lack the skill, because we possess the wisdom to know. Just because we can doesn't mean we should. What would Jesus do with world-controlling technology? He'd refuse it. He'd reject the throne. He'd choose weakness over domination. And he'd invite us to do the same. Not because limitation is weakness, but because respecting human dignity is strength. The future doesn't belong to those who build the most powerful technology. It belongs to those wise enough to know when to stop building. Always. Discussion questions for groups. 1. Have you ever created or worked on something that made you ethically uncomfortable? What did you do? 2. Jesus refused to turn stones to bread. Why? What does that teach us about technology and easy solutions? 3. David could have implemented safeguards instead of destroying ARIA. Why wasn't that enough? 4. The Tower of Babel was about humans becoming like God. How is modern AI similar? 5. Jesus healed on the Sabbath because people mattered more than rules. How does that apply to technology? 6. David's company argued, we're just building a tool. We're not responsible for how it's used. Is that true? 7. If David hadn't destroyed ARIA, someone else would have built something similar. Does that matter? 8. What technologies do you think should not exist, regardless of their potential benefits? 9. Jesus chose weakness over power. How does that inform how we should approach technological innovation? 10. David lost his career but gained integrity. Was it worth it? Would you make the same choice?